Do you believe in ghosts or angels? Let me tell you about an encounter I had. I was 8 months pregnant with my son when he passed away. And I ended up having to go to the hospital to have an emergency C-section. And while I was in the holding room before you go in for surgery, a woman approached wearing brown corduroy pants and a flowered print blouse. And she began talking to me, asking if I was doing okay considering the situation, explained what the surgery was going to be like, and started going through my medical records. I thought she was a social worker or a chaplain volunteer or something. She wasn't wearing scrubs, so I didn't think she was a nurse or a doctor. She was just wearing civilian clothes. I went in for surgery, and when I came out, I woke up and I see her standing there flipping through my paperwork. I started coughing. She immediately turned around, grabbed a pillow, put it across my stomach, and pushed down on my stomach because the pain was excruciating. And she said whenever I had to cough, make sure I put a pillow across my stomach and held it tight because it would make it feel better. I remember I asked her if I still had my uterus, and she said I did. And she continued to just talk to me about the loss of my son. Another nurse came up, asked if I was okay, or a nurse came up and asked if I was okay. And I said yes, considering the situation, I was doing okay. And she said it was very smart of me to put the pillow on my stomach. And I was like, do you not see this chick standing here? The nurse went away. And I looked at the lady, I said, I don't know your name. And she said, my name's Ever. I said, oh, that's a pretty name. It's unusual. I've never heard anybody named Ever before. That's pretty cool. So we continued talking about my son. They went to bring me back up to my room, and she followed with me, and then she got confused in the mess of people that were up there, and I didn't see her again. It was the next day. I was in the room alone with my in-laws, and Ever walked in. And I woke up because I was sleeping. I woke up to her rubbing my feet. And I said, Ever, it's good to see you. Thank you for coming to visit me. I could tell she had tears in her eyes, and I asked her what was wrong, and she said that she had been in the hospital 11 weeks prior and had a baby, but the baby was having problems, not surviving, but thriving, I guess you could say. So she had been in and out of the hospital for 11 weeks dealing with her own baby. And she just said, you are so strong. I can't believe how strong you're being through this. And I said, well, you kind of don't have a choice. You know, it's either break down hysterically or stay strong. She started crying. I called her over to me, and we ended up hugging for a long time. She ended up leaving, and that was the last I saw of her. So after I got out of the hospital, I ended up doing a stint in ICU for blood clots. But when I got out, I kept thinking about Ever. So I painted a wine glass for her that had a heart with 2 angel wings on it with her name at the top. It just said Ever. I also had a pair of angel wing earrings. And I brought them to the hospital, and I went up to labor and delivery, and they said that they didn't know anybody by the name of Ever. And I said, okay, maybe she was a chaplain volunteer. So I go to the chapel. They didn't have any volunteers by the name of Ever. Went to social services. No one by the name of Ever worked there. So I take my butt to HR, because I was like, I know there's a woman named Ever that works here. I go to HR, and they check, and they said, we have no employees or volunteers that work here by the name of Ever. Now, I'm pissed, because I know I'm not crazy, and I'm not losing my mind. So I go back up to labor and delivery, and I'm like, listen, her name is Ever. She had a baby 11 weeks ago. They've been trying to keep the baby alive for 11 weeks. She comes here all the time. And she helped me when my son passed. Now you have to know who she is. Both the nurses got really quiet, and there was an older nurse there. Comes around the corner of the nurse's station and grabs me by the arm and says, walk with me. We walk down the hallway and around the corner, and she looks at me. She goes, honey, I know who Ever is. And I was like, oh, thank God someone finally knows who Ever is. She said, honey, Ever was here 11 weeks ago and did have a baby, but she didn't make it through childbirth. She passed away. I could feel the blood drain from my body. I said, what do you mean she passed away? She was here. This is what she looked like. She said, yes. She goes, you're describing her perfectly. She goes, I think Ever came to you because of the trauma that you were going through with the loss of your son. But Ever passed away 11 weeks ago. So I went home and I took the glass that I had made for her and put it in my kitchen window. And I just sat there thinking about it, and I called my in-laws because I know my in-laws were there. I said, do you remember her? And she goes, honey, we thought you were just high on morphine because you were talking to someone, but there was no one there. Oh my God. So I ended up taking the candle, or the candle holder, the glass that I had painted, and where it said Ever, I put 4. So I would always remember that it was forever, and just kept that as a memory. It took me weeks to realize that I had painted forever an angel in my heart. It blew my mind. I'm devastated because the glass ended up breaking when I was going through a divorce and moving my stuff. I broke the glass, which devastated me, and I lost the earring somewhere along the way. But that's my story of Ever, the spirit that came to visit me when my son passed away.
What's something that happened to you that sounds so fake that if you were to tell people, they wouldn't believe you?
This is a story that I haven't told many people because frankly, I feel like everybody would think I'm crazy. When I was 16 years old, I went on a ski trip with my school. I live in Australia and snow is rare, so we had to go an 18-hour bus ride down south to the snow. I was with my friends, we're having a good time, we were excited to go snowboarding, but on only the second day of this trip, my entire life shifted. So because we weren't experienced in snowboarding, most of us school kids would go with the people who worked at this snow lodge, and we'd all snowboard as one big group down the slopes. Some of the courses were more easy, some of them were more difficult, really just depending on what sort of experience you had as a snowboarder. I had none, so I was snowboarding with a big group of people, but I was the person at the very back of this group. Everyone starts to turn around this big mountain. Because I'm 5 seconds behind everyone, I turn around the mountain 5 seconds later. Mind you, it's a super busy day on the snow, it's a beautiful sunny day, and there are people everywhere. And like, not just us school kids, like a lot of people. But when I turn around this big mountain, everyone is gone. Everybody who was in front of me was gone, and everybody who was skiing or snowboarding behind me was gone. Like, there were people who were not in the group I was snowboarding with, other people behind me. So once I went around this mountain, they should have followed. I should have been able to see everybody in front of me, because after I turned this mountain, it was just a straight long slope down the hill. But I was dead alone. I'm obviously instantly confused, shocked. I don't understand what's happening. I get my phone out to call my best friend who was on this ski trip with me. And I remember so distinctly, my phone was on like 75% charge. Like, it was charged. But as soon as I pressed the little circle to enter my phone, my whole screen went black and the no battery signal came up. The only way I could make sense of what happened is that everybody somehow just beat me to the bottom of this course, and everyone behind me somehow went past me without me realizing. I was just like grasping at straws. So I continued to just keep snowboarding down the hill, hoping that I'd just make it to the end. The thing is that there was no end. There was no end to this course, or whatever alternate reality course I had just jumped into. As I mentioned, I was not an experienced snowboarder, so I was trying my best to snowboard, but I kept falling over. I decided to just eventually give up, clip my snowboard off, and walk. I walked for like an hour. I was tired. I was carrying this heavy snowboard. I was walking in snow, which is just as hard as walking in sand. And after what feels like forever, I finally came to this, what looked like an abandoned ski lift. It was really dingy and old and creaky and looked scary. I thought my best chance was to get onto this ski lift so I could get up high and have a look around, hoping that maybe I'd find where the main area is, because in the main area there's like a bar and cafes and restaurants and whatever. I thought if I can see that, I know which direction to walk in and I can just make my way over there before the sun sets. But when I get onto this ski lift, there's nothing but snow and trees. And obviously I was freaking out because it was sunset, like it was about to be dark. But then I was also thinking, how the fuck did this happen? Like, I was with a group of people in a busy area, and also because I was a child and a beginner at snowboarding, obviously they took us to a course that was super close to like the main area. The fact that I'm now on this single-seater ski lift looking out 360 views and there's nothing, I didn't know, what do you even do? And it was on that ski lift I just broke down sobbing. Like, I genuinely thought I was going to die. I just wanted my mum. And this ski lift just drops me off at nowhere, like no destination, no platform, nothing. The cabin that we were staying at, the way to get to this main area to go skiing and snowboarding in was that we had to catch a shuttle bus and then an underground subway. The sunset, it's dark. You have to understand how scary it was. Because when I say dark, I mean I couldn't barely see what was in front of me. There's no city lights anywhere. Didn't have the torch on my phone to shine. Just as I was about to give up and sit down and accept what was going to happen, I saw like this glowing light in the distance. And what it led me to was like this glowing tunnel with a staircase leading down into it. And what led me to the bottom was an underground subway. How that was there, I don't know. Why it was there, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense for there to be a proper station there because I was in the middle of nowhere. But sure enough, the subway came and I jumped on it. And it took me to the shuttle buses and I took a shuttle bus back to the cabin. And when I walked into the cabin, all the school kids I was with, all the teachers that were there were all having like dinner together. And I was like, was no one looking for me? And everybody very nonchalantly, not in like even a rude way, were just like, oh, hey, Chloe, there you are. It was almost as if they were hearing me through a filter and they weren't grasping the gravity of what I was trying to say. I don't know. The whole thing was weird. The energy was off. For the next few days, I stayed in the cabin. I refused to leave the cabin. And then when I got home, things felt slightly off. I don't really know how to explain it, but for example, certain objects in my room were in like a different place. And it's not as if anybody in my family would have gone in and rearranged my room. It didn't feel like that's what happened. It felt as if that is where it belonged. But I knew that it was in a different spot before I left. Even just weird things like timing felt different. Everything was just slightly tweaked. When I told my sister about this story a few years later, she said to me, there probably is a timeline out there where you did get lost in the snow and quantum jumped. And she said there's probably a timeline out there where our family is grieving you, which is so scary and sad to think. But that's my story where if I told anybody, they probably wouldn't believe me.
I'm seeing all these videos about vampires popping up on my TikTok For You page. And I never ever thought I would tell this story, at least in a public forum. But here goes. This is my vampire story. It still baffles my mind when I think that, say that, and I still get the creeps with the memory of any of this. And I'm going to be a little bit cryptic, if you get my drift, with regards to some of the experiences. But several decades ago, I had lost my job. I had just had my baby girl. So she's going to be 30 this year. So that's how long it's been. And I had gotten a job interview at a local business. Again, I'm not going to say what kind of business. And I went to this interview and I immediately felt something odd with the owner of this business. There was something so mesmerizing about him. He wasn't good looking, but he was good looking. And it's hard to explain. Like, there was just something strange about him, and he just felt almost hypnotic. And he said, I'm interviewing for a couple more people and I'll give you a call in a couple days and let you know if you get the job. Okay. I did get the job. A couple days later, he gave me a phone call and he said, I am offering you this job at this pay. And it wasn't bad. The hours weren't bad. The pay wasn't bad. And I said, let me think about it. I had another offer on the table. And he said, please let me know by tomorrow. And I'm like, understood. So I had called my mom, and my mom is very intuitive, even though she didn't really want to admit that she was. And I told her, and I'm like, I got this job offer, and I didn't even tell her a lot of like the creepiness that this guy kind of gave me. And she's like, Christy, I have a really bad feeling. Do not accept this job. Do not accept the job. I'm telling you right now, something's not right. Do not accept this job. Now, this is a business that was in the person's family for a long time. And so it wasn't anything out of, it wasn't like a starter company. This person was kind of known in the community. My mom didn't know him, but so it was a substantial, real job. And I'm like, Mom, I don't understand. I need a job. She's like, you're going to get a job offer from that other place that you interviewed for. Just stick it out. Tell this guy no and accept the other job once it comes. And I'm like, this job was actually, it was pretty good. But I took my mom's advice and I called the gentleman the next day and I said, I'm so sorry. I am really honored, but I'm declining the job offer. And thank you very much for your time. And he's like, I will double your pay. Excuse me, sir? I will double your pay. Now, it already was good pay, but double the pay was a lot of pay. And I'm like, again, something felt really off. And I'm like, sir, I'm so sorry. I'm going to decline. And he's like, I'm going to check with you in a couple days. And there was just something very ominous about the way that he said that. And that night, I ended up having a dream with him in it. And it was very vampire-ish, is the only way that I can describe it. And the business that he was in also spoke volumes for that. So a couple days later, he called me. And I said, again, sir, I've accepted another job. And I did not tell him with whom. And he's like, I will triple your salary. And I'm like, I'm sorry, sir. And he said, I can tell that you are very psychic. And I can tell that you know who I am and what I am. And I think it would behoove you to take this job. What? So I told him again, no, thank you. And he said, okay. Now this was like, internet wasn't really a thing. Like you couldn't really look people up. There was AOL chat and such like that, but you couldn't really look people up like you can now. And so I ended up accepting a job at a cabinet store and as an office manager. And I didn't hear from him, but I was still having these weird nightmares with him in it. And I'm like, it's just got to be in my head, right? But it was almost like he could read my mind. It was very strange. Well, guess who showed up at the kitchen store the second day that I started? Yeah, this guy. And it's like he knew that I was going to be there. He's like, hi, Christy. And I'm like, excuse me, what are you stalking me? Like, what are you doing here? And he's like, I'm ordering a new kitchen for the business. Like, it was nothing. And he continued to come in my dreams. About a year later, I ended up taking a job at a fireplace store as an office manager. A couple days into that, this gentleman walks in and says, I need a new fireplace for my business. Excuse me. Now, I'm not going to say everything about the business and everything about him, but you might be able to figure it out with a clue. And that is he lived above the business. That's all I'm going to say. So he's like, yep, I need a fireplace. And I'm like, sir, I don't understand why you're here. And he continued every time. He's like, would you like to work with me? I'm like, nope, I'm good. I'm good. I worked at the fireplace store for a couple of years, and he would every once in a while call and he would ask for the fireplace to be serviced. And I ended up telling my boss at the time, like, how I felt about him. And he would laugh and he's like, I'm going to send you out there with the tech. And I'm like, no, you're not. But he was like, yeah, something's strange about this person. Something is almost like immortal. Even if you look at the family lineage, it's like he's existed before, and it wasn't like his great-great-grandfather. It was like him. So I ended up quitting a couple of years after that, and I worked for a school district. And guess who showed up at the admin office? Him. And in the meantime, he's still coming in my dreams. And every once in a while, he's still calling me and asking me if I want a job. And no. My mom had passed away. I'd gotten a divorce. I mean, we are eons into this. And I ended up running into him at a store, and he, like, do you remember everybody you interviewed like one time? Because he either has a really crazy memory, or it wasn't like a stalker. He just wasn't. That wasn't the case. It's just, again, it was very vampiristic. Is that a word? And so I ran into him, and he's like, "Hi, Christy." And again, he's like, "How are you doing?" And it was just very kind of Norman Bates creepy. I ended up in the job that I'm in now. I'm a professional psychic medium. I ended up having to go to a competitor of his to work on a case. And we ended up talking about this gentleman and his business. And I didn't say anything, but the owner of this establishment went, just Christy, make sure you stay away from, because he's a vampire. And I didn't laugh, and she didn't laugh, and she knew I knew, and I knew she do too. So vampires do exist, and they don't necessarily wear capes. Sometimes they wear business suits, and sometimes they invade your dreams. And I feel as if there's a possibility that my life at that time was a little bit crazy, and it was because of the psychic sort of like vampire energy that he was sending to me, because he was mad that I did not accept a job with him. I would love to tell you more, but I don't want to open up that can of bats.
I used to do house calls in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains, primarily for people that lived like off the grid. They didn't have telephones. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no GPS. You use a map. You use the compass. And the company that I worked for doesn't exist anymore. I don't work for that company anymore. But all of the stories I have are very interesting. Based on true stories. Of course, I have to change some things because of anonymity. But when people say that there are strange things in the Appalachian Mountains, I didn't believe it until I actually worked in the Appalachian Mountains. Here's one of those events, for example. I was en route to a patient's home, and as I said, I have a lot of patients that are off the grid, or they live in very rural communities. So I'm driving down a road, and I make a hard turn onto like a side street, I suppose you would say. And there's a single car length bridge. This is important. And I go about 5 minutes past that bridge, and it takes me to another small road where there's a house. Okay, so obviously it didn't take me very long off of the main gravel road to get to this person's house. And like I said, I don't have a GPS, so I really have to pay attention to where I'm going, and how long I've been on this road, and like landmarks, so that I can find my way back. It's the middle of the afternoon, and when I arrive on the property, there's a barn straight ahead at the end of like this drive, and then the house is far set to like the left, and there's like a field in front of the house, right? But it looked like I was supposed to park in front of the barn. That's where the gravel thing ended, so I figured I'd park here and I'll walk to the house. I don't see any other houses around or anything, but I hear that there's people around because I hear like kids playing. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of nice. It's a beautiful day outside. I heard someone call out to me. They said, hello. And I, am still getting stuff out of my car. And I say, hello, I'll be there. Just, give me 1 second. I'm getting my things out of the car. And then I turn, and there's like a car that looks like it's been parked there for a while. And I know this because there's like weeds and brush going up around it. And there's a gentleman that's walking out from behind the car. Looks like he was tinkering on it or something. He was wearing like denim overalls. No shirt underneath. Nothing particularly interesting about this guy. And so I turned around and started heading to the house, and I don't see anyone, so I'm like, well, they must have said hello and then gone back inside. I don't know, maybe they're getting their medications ready, getting their paperwork ready for us to review it when I get in. And I knocked on the door, and the person comes and collects me, and she said, oh, I didn't see that you had arrived. You're a bit early. And I said, oh, am I? Sorry, thought I heard you call out to me. And she said no. And I was like, okay, fluke, whatever. So we're doing the visit, and we're almost done with the visit. It's still early afternoon. And I get to asking this person, I always ask, who do you live with? And she had said, oh, you know, I live alone and I own like 100 and some acres. And I was like, oh, so like nobody else lives on the property with you? And she says no. And I said, well, I like thought I heard kids playing outside, and I saw a man like doing something with that car out there. Like, does he work for you? And she looked at me and she said, it's out there. And I was like, the car? Yeah, it's out there. It's at this moment I realized I don't think we're talking about the car. And she goes, you have to go. I'm like, I have to go. I'm like, you know, pardon me, but I'm not quite done yet. And she said, it's going to rain. And if it rains and that pass that you came through, that dirt road gets wet, you won't be able to leave. And I'm like, it's not going to rain. Like, it's a clear sky outside. She says, I'll fix you a sandwich. Things are happening quickly. Like, it's kind of bizarre. We go from having a nice visit and talking to, you need to leave now. And I'm still confused as hell because she's telling me that she lives on a property where no one else is. And I just literally heard people outside and saw a guy on her property. So, like, I'm not understanding what's going on. She's consistently saying, like, you have to leave. It's going to rain. You're going to get stuck. You won't be able to leave. Okay. So she hands me a bag. She says there's a sandwich in it. It's like a mesh bag that you keep, like, potatoes or onions in. She just threw, like, a baggie in there. She said it was a sandwich. So I'm talking to her while she's making the sandwich, and she's telling me that I need to go get back on the road. And I turn, and it's dark outside. And I don't mean storm cloud dark outside. I mean it's dark outside. It's the middle of the afternoon. And she hastily, walks me to the door from which I have come, opens the door, says goodbye, practically pushes me out and closes the door. Now I'm standing in the middle of the afternoon. That was a sunny afternoon on this person's porch in the pitch black with a sandwich. I still don't quite understand the sandwich. What do you want me to do? You want me to bargain with Paranormal Patrick out here for my life? Exchange a sandwich for the skin that he wants to take off and wear like a glove? Not gonna lie, I'm tweaking out a little bit. I'm like, what is going on? Everything was fine. So, like I said, I have been in interesting situations before. I have no Wi-Fi. I cannot call anybody. My car is parked, remember, across the field next to the barn, past several cars that are parked on this property that I just saw someone walking by, and I see nobody now. So I do what anybody would do. I pretend that I'm walking on a target. I am unbothered. I keep a steady pace. I do not stop. I keep my head straight ahead to my car. And I can tell you clear as day, there is somebody walking. There's somebody walking parallel to me. And you could, like, I could feel it. Like, I could feel somebody looking at me. Give me goosebumps. I don't know if you can see the goosebumps. But, like, I can still, oh, yeah, you can. I can still remember, like, somebody's in this field with me. And how the hell is it this dark outside? I'm not gonna lie, I dropped the sandwich. I'm like, I don't care. I'm done. It gets quiet. From the point that I'm walking from the field to my car, it is quiet. No crickets, no frogs, no nothing. But you know what I can hear? The sound of jeans. The sound that denim makes when someone's walking. At this point, I'm like, don't run. Don't run. Don't run. Just keep walking like you're walking out of Target. Get to your car and leave. I get to my car. I get back on the road. I start driving. And I'm waiting to see this bridge that I came in on. Because remember, I told you I make note of landmarks. I know how long I've driven on this road because I need to get back to the main road, which means I need to remember how I've come. I'm driving on this road in the dark for like 20 minutes. And there is no main road in sight. And this is the only road that enters this property. Like, I couldn't have made a wrong turn. I'm driving down the road. Eventually, I get to like this, I wouldn't say brick. It's like this stone underpass bridge thing. I drive under it. It's maybe a little tunnel. I drive under it. It's pitch black on the inside. I get to the other side. It's daytime. And I'm sitting in my car like shaking, trying to make sense of this. Like, how is this possible? Like, weather? No, weather does not explain it. She's like, it's going to rain. There was no rain, okay? That wasn't clouds. That was night, okay? That was night. That pitch black, middle of the day. I've encountered some strange things on this job, but I can tell you that really felt like being hunted. That was an interesting feeling. And to this day, I still don't understand the sandwich. I don't understand why she was so insistent on making me leave with this sandwich. But it didn't come with me. I dropped it on the way to the car. I was like, absolutely not. This is just too weird. This whole thing is so weird. Now, like I said, I worked this area for quite some time. I kind of knew my way around. I kind of knew what roads were shooting off the main gravel road. I could find my way to different side streets, if you will. And this was the first time I had seen this patient. It was the first time I had been off this road with the bridge. And I actually went back that way to drive past it to see another patient again. And I could not, for the life of me, find this road. It's like it wasn't there. There was like rock formation, like a part of the mountain that you would drive, you would turn around, and then it would give way to this little road that I got on. And I passed over this bridge and made it to this woman's property. And I never saw that road again. I know you probably think I'm absolutely crazy, but I never saw that road again. The Appalachian Mountains are not for the weak, y'all. I mean, I can't explain it. I know it's kind of an odd story. It's kind of anticlimactic. Nothing happened. But, I can't explain it. If you live in the Appalachian Mountains, have you ever heard of something like this happening before? I know it sounds silly, but what do you mean the road's not there?
So I had a literal We're in the Matrix dream about 2 months ago. I'm a lucid dreamer. I literally always wake up in my dreams. I have been lucid dreaming since I was a kid. And after having this dream, I have not had a lucid dream in almost 2 months. So I've just decided that I'm going to talk about it because I have no idea what to make of it. You can go watch my dreams playlist on here if you want, but essentially I have lucid dreams all the time. I wake up at the smallest mention of something that is not based in reality. This is frequent for me. It has been happening since I was a little kid. It leads to some very cool dreams, some very interesting stuff, but this one was actually scary. So essentially I had a dream. It was just like all the other dreams. I was in my bedroom, I'm playing the piano. I think I'm 17. I'm at my parents' house. It starts out, I'm doing something kind of mundane and usual. And then I have this strong feeling if I look out of my bedroom window, it's not going to be, the view of the forest that was my parents' backyard. So I look out the window. Sure enough, there's dream characters everywhere. There's streets. It's a whole circus outside. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm dreaming. But I didn't want to say that out loud. And I was alone in my bedroom. So I was like, okay, so there's no dream characters here to kind of take me away. No dream police. So I sit down and I'm like, I'm just going to play the piano. I'm just going to sing. I'm just going to try to be creative in this space. Hopefully I don't wake up and that'll be fine. I'll just be kind of lucid here. So I'm playing the piano and my fingers start doing that dream thing where you're kind of getting sucked into stuff. The piano's kind of being weird. And so I get a little bit freaked out and I go I'm dreaming, stop, whatever. So immediately when I'm I'm dreaming, cut. Immediately the piano stops being weird, the room stops being weird. I kind of look over to the door. There's a woman standing there with a clipboard. So then I'm in this room. This girl's there. She's got a little pixie cut. She's like, oh, you gotta go. She got the clipboard. I'm like, okay, I know I gotta go, but I'm can you just answer some questions for me? So she comes over, I'm sitting on my bed, and as I'm asking her these questions about why I have to leave and why I keep waking up in my dreams, I'm kind of looking around and all of a sudden the walls start to be weird. If you've ever seen Community and you know what the Dreamatorium is, it kind of starts glitching. It's am I in some sort of weird white room that has lines and it's almost like a projected virtual reality? That's what it looked like. So as this dream woman's talking to me, suddenly everything turns into this very it's a virtual reality space, and it's almost the VR dies and this other woman is standing there and she's she gets real weird. She's oh my God, no, I have to fix this. What? She's you were supposed to wake up. And I was what do you mean? She's you're just not supposed to be able to access this space while you're in a dream. You should not be here. And I don't know how you got here. And we are going to be in a lot of trouble. And I was what do you mean by we? So essentially she takes me out of this room and we are on some sort of a spacecraft, and she takes me over to this screen. It's It's like in the wall, and it's showing like past dreams that I've had from like this camera perspective, and I'm seeing them, and I remember that I've had these dreams. I'm like, how do you have access to this? She's like, I actually have this whole file on you. Like, we've been watching you, and like essentially, you know, like we know that you can lucid dream, like, but you're not supposed to be able to leave the dream and come into like what is here reality. And I'm on, literally, it's like a spacecraft, but it was very weird. And essentially, she keeps showing me, like, the moments in dreams when I become awake. And she's like, humans aren't supposed to be able to do that. And we don't know why you can do that. But, like, this is you waking up in all your dreams. And there is, like, this shift in the dream. And I can see it from, like, a third-person point of view instead of my experience. But it's all dreams that I remember having in the past. And I'm like, I just want to explore, so I don't know what you're talking about. She's just like, no, it goes beyond that. Like, you shouldn't be able to do this. She brings out this folder, and it's numbered. Like, I have a number, like a case number. And she's just like, yeah, your number, whatever. And, like, we've been watching you for a while because, like, you can do this, and nobody else can. And, like, we just want to know why. But, like, essentially, we're going to have to stop it from happening. So I'm not going to lie, at this point, I start getting really freaked out because I'm lucid. I'm physically, like, in a body. I'm there. Everything feels very, very real, and I'm, like, fully aware of who I am. I know that I'm, like, back asleep on Earth. I'm in a dream. Like, I know everything, but I also have all these memories of, like, all of my dreams as well. And so she takes me into this room, and it's, like, a waiting room, and there's all these people who are dreaming, and they're, like, catatonic, and they all have these handlers, but, like, literally they're catatonic. Like, I'm trying to, like, look at them, get their attention. Like, nobody is responding. They're all asleep, and something's, like, wrong with them or wrong with their dreams, and they're waiting to be kind of, like, processed, and they're in this room. So then these, like, military people come up to me. They're not, like, United States military. It literally, like, I don't know how to explain it. They seemed human to me, but it felt, like, futuristic or alien or something. Like, I don't quite know. It was, like, this group of people. And they come and they, like, escort me to a bridge of some sort. Like, not a full bridge, like, the bridge of a ship. And this is where it gets really weird, but they start asking me about, like, vaccines or, like, shots or something. Like, they're asking me about that. And I'm like, yeah, like, I've got all the shots on Earth that I'm supposed to get. And they were just like, no, like, something's wrong with your DNA. Like, you're not supposed to be able to wake up here. Like, we're going to have to give you this injection, and then you'll never be able to lucid dream again. And I was like, excuse me, what? And this handler woman's like, apologized. She's like, I'm really sorry that we have to do this, but, like, we have to do it. You can't be here. And so I'm just like, what are you talking about? They start talking about, like, B12. I don't know where that came from. They started talking about, like, certain genes, and then they put these, like, dots on my veins. I was like, get off of me. But I, like, can't wake up. I'm lucid, but I can't wake up myself at all. So essentially, I have this conversation with these, like, higher ups, like, whoever are the captain or whatever, and they're telling me that, like, they're asking me questions, they're asking me about my experience, I'm asking them about, like, why I can't be there. They're kind of being like, well, that's classified, whatever. And then they, like, prepare this injection, and they give my handler, like, a shot, and they're just like, okay, you're gonna have to, like, take her back to the room, give her this injection, and she's never gonna be able to lucid dream again. And I'm like, what? So I get taken back to the room, right, with this woman, and I'm like, please don't do this. Like, I love lucid dreaming. I don't want to not be able to lucid dream. And I kind of asked her, I was like, what is the problem? She's like, she said something about, like, I'm able to see beyond, and I shouldn't be able to, like, push through the layers of that reality, but I can, and it's dangerous. So I was like, please don't do this. So then she goes and she leans in, and she, like, doesn't give me the shot. She, like, squirts it out. She's just like, I'm actually a huge fan. Like, I've watched your videos. Like, I've been following you, and I've asked to be assigned to this case because I have been watching you essentially, like, your whole life. And I think this is, like, really amazing that you can do this. She's just sort of like, I'm going to help you out. And so essentially she told me to just try to, like, pull my consciousness back, try to be, like, as unconscious catatonic as I can be. And, like, I started crying, and she's like, that's fine, but, like, you have to just, like, wake yourself up. So I just, like, pulled my consciousness back, and I was, like, sobbing, and I woke myself up. And then it was crazy because essentially, like, she was telling me, like, if they find out I didn't give you this shot, like, they're gonna come looking for you. They don't want you to be able to, like, dream like this again. And then when I woke up, I literally had, like, 104-degree fever. I was not sick when I went to bed, and then I woke up with this 104-degree fever. Felt like I was dying. And I was sick for, like, 4 days with, like, this horrible flu that came out of nowhere when I had that dream. And ever since then, I haven't had another lucid dream. like at all. In fact, I'm having like weirdly normal dreams, like dreams about stressful things going on in my life, like dreams that would wake me up, and I have not had another lucid dream. So I don't know what to make of that. It really scared me. And to be fair, actually, like I got so delirious with fever. I was like, I told my fiance about this dream, and then I was like, I am going to like go back to sleep, and I'm going to make a deal with the people that like if my fever breaks, and because it wouldn't break, like I was taking medicine, my fever would not break for like 3 days. I was like, if my fever breaks, then like I won't lucid dream anymore. And I went to sleep, and I do not remember having any sort of a dream about that, but I did wake up, my fever was broken, and I have not had a lucid dream since. So I literally don't know what that means. And if anything, it's really hard to think about, because I'm just like, it was so real, and I can very vividly remember being there for like the whole dream and what everything looked like and how futuristic and alien it was. And it was actually really scary. Like when I woke up, I was so paranoid that I wasn't going to be able to remember it. And I was so sick that it was like really hard to even like write it down. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts or if anybody else has had any experience like this. Essentially, like I don't want to be like we are stuck in a matrix or anything like that, because maybe dreams are just weird things. But considering I've had psychic dreams, I have dreams about people's deaths, like when they die, I have like premonitions, and that's really connected to the real world. I'm just sort of like, I don't know what to make of this dream. And like I said, it's been 2 months, and I don't think I've woken up in a dream since. So that's that.